So would you like to we'll jump in to tell people about what Time to Act is, and then we'll explore the arena around it, clean tech and that kind of thing, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So would you like to tell people, a little bit about Time to Act and what we're looking to do?
Yes, I'd love to. So Time to Act is a new business. We are an aggregator or a platform or an operator. We invest in and facilitate companies in the clean tech space, small companies in the clean tech space. And a key part of that mentality is that we want to be a best owner for these businesses. So we typically take full or large control stakes, full ownership where we can. We operate those businesses, but we help them to grow. We help them to grow through providing strategic insight, through helping commercialize. And what is also very, very important about a platform like ours is that we provide financing. If you were to go out and talk to 100 entrepreneurs in the small startup world, 98 or 99 of them would tell you that at least 50% of their time is spent on trying to raise money, raise money to keep the lights on and to grow the business. When the entrepreneurs, the scientists, the technologists, the boffins, they should be driving these businesses forward and not having to look over their shoulder constantly as to where the next pound of money of financing is coming from. And so that's a very important part of our platform, is that we provide the route into that finance. And the reason that we're looking to do an initial public offering to float on the stock market next year is to provide more of that financial capability and to provide that financial capability on a permanent capital basis. So we're very, very different to a venture capital fund, for example, which invests with a certain time frame. With a venture capital or a private equity business, the moment that they buy into and invest into a business, that business is effectively for sale, whether it's tomorrow or at the end of an investment horizon period. We are permanent capital. We're very, very patient capital. We would like to be permanent capital. So we are investing in businesses without ever having to sell them, without ever having to come to an end of a fund lifetime and having to exit a business, but knowing that we want to be the best owner, and that the next best owner might be someone out there who has a greater vision, a different vision, and can be a better owner than we can. So we would always exit a business in the future, but we have no defined timeline. We have no defined need to ever sell out of a business that we help to grow.
I think it makes perfect sense. And I've seen it firsthand how with certain types of finance, the pressure to grow the business regardless can be disruptive. And, the point is that when you mentioned before about how the boffins, the scientists, the current founders, the inventors, whoever, often they want to kind of get on with the bit they enjoy doing and the bit that they're good at. And often that isn't dealing with investors or sales and marketing or whichever. And actually, it's how you build a really good team that takes the best of everyone's skill set. But because you have, I always use football or sports as an analogy, but you have the striker, but you have a good midfielder, you have defense, you have different players, but they each bring something special that you can create a championship winning team. It's like when Leicester won the league quite a few years ago. They didn't have necessarily any single best player, but they had a good team and they had good work ethic and they just showed up. And I think so much in a lot of the SMEs and stuff that I work with, that kind of ethos and mentality and drive, I say you can't buy, but almost it's so important, and it does make a huge difference to kind of the success of a business. So within the group, we've got 2 entities at the moment. Do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about each, and then we'll go into a bit more kind of detail?
Yeah, so we have 2 businesses within the portfolio. So the first business is called Diffusion Alloys. Diffusion Alloys is a coating company. It was established in 1955, selling the first company to commercialize diffusion coatings or chromite coatings in the world. Is still going, had been going fairly badly wrong until we stepped in and stopped it going wrong. So we've owned the business for 9 or 10 years now.
Wow.
And what we've done with that business is that we've turned it around. We've transformed it from being a coater operating primarily in the gas turbine industry, so coating gas turbine blades, to a coater which coats a variety of components for almost uniquely or predominantly the clean tech industry. So we are, we think, the world's largest coater of large tube and pipe bundles that go into the hydrogen industry. We coat for the two leading solid oxide fuel cell companies in Europe. And we are running trials at the moment for solid oxide electrolyzers, which we used in making green hydrogen, in the battery industry, in heat storage, thermal heat storage, a lot of different renewable applications. So really, we've taken a business which was predominantly focused on that old economy or carbon economy gas turbine world, and turned it around completely to focus on these new clean tech applications. The second business is a company called Greenspur. Greenspur has been developing a new type of generator with the sight of selling into the offshore wind industry. So it's a generator based on rare earth-free magnets. So we use standard ferrite magnets, which is very uncommon in the industry. And we've developed a generator which is competitive and actually outcompetes established generators on a certain number of different parameters. We are hopefully this week, going to close our first commercial order in that business. So that is a very significant stepping stone into the next period of growth for that business. We brought those two businesses together, a very old, established, cash generative, profitable and cash generative coatings business and a new startup development business. We put them together because there's a lot of commercial awareness in the diffusion alloys business. So despite being a small coatings company, we sell into GE, we sell into Siemens, we sell into Technip, Air Liquide, Linde, some of the biggest engineering companies in the world. And that ability to know how to talk to those big customers is a key attribute that we can bring to a lot of engineering and technology startups. And whilst a lot of startups have great products on the drawing board, getting those off the drawing board and into commercial application is a significantly bigger challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs see. And we can utilize, as I've said, that commercial strength in the diffusion alloys business and bring that across and help that and use that to grow other businesses within the portfolio.
I think it's clever on many different levels because, again, you've got two complementary businesses. But then likewise, obviously, it was only last week, you had COP, and there's a lot of global change that people and generations of people are looking at how we help move industry, move the whole planet kind of forward. And it's the classic example of, although people often look at, say, Tesla with electric cars, and yes, they're fantastic, but often the people that can provide or support or facilitate the creation of electric cars, you can sell into all the brands. The point being, especially say with diffusion alloys, the growth in hydrogen, especially on T-side, huge kind of growth in different areas. I saw an announcement earlier today, and it was Ben Houcham saying that I believe Shell, and I read this just quickly before I came on, but might be moving their global headquarters for net zero to T-side. But the point is, the business and its ability to facilitate and work in fuel cell industries and lots of different applications is in some ways a lot more valuable than just being specialist in one, if that makes sense. And then likewise with Greenspur, the new technology in terms of wind turbine generation, it's a project I worked on with someone else in the past. The fact of where you actually source your metals and your minerals and things from, it is getting harder and harder to do, that actually companies are genuinely looking for an alternative. And that's partly because they have to, because otherwise if they can't find the materials to make their current design of generator, they're going to go out to market to try and find something which is credible and ticks all the boxes, but doesn't need something that they can't get anymore. And that's where I think, almost in terms of global growth potential in new sectors, I think it's a very clever kind of business.
And I've been around this industry for a long time. So in 2000, I ran and organized at Lehman Brothers the first investor conference specializing in the renewables industry. We ran that conference in Switzerland, and we talked about wind, and we talked about solar, and we talked about fuel cells, we talked about microturbines. And at that time, all of these industries were starting to grow very nicely, but were tiny little industries compared to what they've become today. And being able to have sat on the sidelines and looked at that and learned from the process over the last 20 years has been quite an exciting period of time. A lot of businesses came to market raised a lot of money 20 years ago, and came to market 10 or even 20 years too early. But you mentioned COP26. I mean, this is the now for the renewable industry. And I'm not an evangelist. I'm not a messiah. I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and preach about all of these technologies. But one of the reasons that I do this is we are on the cusp of something that is so new and so different. When you think about net zero and decarbonisation, the reality is that humanity has been burning stuff since the dawn of time. Ever since we learned how to make fire, we've been burning stuff and burning carbon, and actually moving the whole of societal development away from a carbon economy in favour of a solar and wind and geographical economy. That is such a momentous change. It changes the entirety of human history, and we're just on the cusp of that. It's going to be such an exciting thing to be a part of.
Because I think one of the things that I always try and use is that I, in theory, have worked in around offshore wind for 10 plus years on the government side, then kind of moved around. But for me as a mechanical engineer, I work and help run oil and gas companies, people that supply into the supply chain. And actually, I am 100% for the sustainable element of everything we're trying to do. But the fact that, the world will need a transition over time. Hydrogen isn't ready today. But the point is, it's the skill set that companies have, and they might have learned it in fossil fuels, but actually the way to design pipework and do insulation, and I work with an offshore installer, but there's so much detail that is transferable, that especially for somewhere like the northeast of England, where we have a lot of historic history of making stuff, but also the southeast. The UK is the world leader in offshore wind, but again, our supply chain is so experienced from doing stuff that actually I think it's really exciting, that kind of next journey.